TFA fam, welcome into the Week 16 wide receiver show. Hope you're all moving on to your Week 2 playoff matchups. Let's dive into our top 36 wide receivers for the week and to talk about some guys that we are high on this week as well. Kicking things off for us, no surprise here at number 1, Mr. Cooper Kupp, followed by Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Deebo Samuel, Deontay Johnson, Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Cordarrelle Patterson, Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, and T. Higgins wrap things up for us at our wide receiver ones. Moving on to the wide receiver twos, we have A.J. Brown, who should be returning this week, followed by Jalen Waddle, Michael Pittman, DK Metcalf, Hunter Renfrow, Tyler Lockett, Christian Kirk, Brandon Cooks, Antonio Brown, Amari Cooper, Terry McLaurin, and Mike Williams at wide receiver 24. Our wide receiver threes for Week 16, Hollywood Brown, Devontae Parker, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brandon Ayuk, Russell Gage, DJ Moore, Adam Thielen, Van Jefferson, Darnell Mooney, Odell Beckham, Devonta Smith, and Gabe Davis coming in at wide receiver 36. Kev, kick it up for us. Who are some of these guys a little further on down the rankings who you would be comfortable plugging in your Week 16 lineups?
Yeah, I'm going to start things off with Christian Kirk. We saw last week 9 receptions on 12 targets, 94 yards, and a score. Put up 24.4 PPR points. And, he gets a great matchup this week against the Colts, who have allowed the 14th most fantasy points to wide receivers. They've also allowed the 3rd most receiving touchdowns. And we've seen with games without DeAndre Hopkins, he has a 22%, 28%, 11% and a 24% target shares. He's been probably the best wide receiver the Cardinals have had all year this year. And so I don't think anything's going to change here. And this is a pretty solid matchup against a Colts secondary that can really be had through the air. So I think it's wheels up for Christian Kirk this week. So if you got him, you're playing him. I think he's a solid wide receiver 3. I have him as a wide receiver 2. But either way, I think he's a great play this week. And then next up, we have Darnell Mooney. He is kind of the only wide receiver they really have on a consistent basis. 5 receptions on 7 targets for 63 yards in this game last week against the Vikings. He has a 25% target share on the year with a 33.7% market share of the air yards. He's also 36th in yards after the catch, 31st in yards per out run, and he's also has 11.7 fantasy points per game. We'll see if Allen Robinson will be able to get cleared from the COVID protocol, but they do get the Seattle Seahawks this week, who have been definitely had through the air this year. And, I like Darnell Mooney. It's somebody that gets a 25% target share on a weekly basis. He just hasn't really seen the end zone as much as you would like to see. But regardless of that, Darnell Mooney is a fine wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 every single week. And nothing changes here with this great matchup against Seattle. Next up, we have Devontae Parker, 4 receptions on 8 targets for 68 yards and a touchdown, 16.8 fantasy points. Jalen Waddle should be back this week, but regardless, he has still averaged 8 targets per game with a 35% market share of the air yards and 12.5 fantasy points per game. And the Saints allow the 12th most fantasy points to wide receivers. Marshawn Lattimore has been very up and down. He tends to allow really big plays, which would be right up the wheelhouse of Devontae Parker. But I think this is another really great matchup for Devontae Parker this week, especially someone that's going to see, anywhere from 8 to 10 targets every single week. I love Devontae Parker, and he's something that a lot of people have just been able to add off waiver wire. And I think he's going to be a solid, wide receiver 3 again this week in a matchup against the Saints, which I believe is on Monday Night Football. So, I think these are 3 guys you could definitely plug in. I think 3 guys that, really all have really high ceilings.
Yeah, I really like those calls. I'm really going to throw in one more name into the fold here, and that is Russell Gage. I mean, you're looking at this dude who's quietly been one of the most consistent receivers for the past several weeks, honestly. But in his last 4 games, he's averaging 9 targets, 7.3 receptions, nearly 87 yards, and half a touchdown. He has 2 scores in those 4 games. Now gets a matchup going up against Detroit. You can confidently plug him in as a wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, he is quietly just flown under the radar. And I mean, like I've said, like even in the waiver shows every week, I mean, he's still rostered in less than 55% of leagues. And he has been so consistent this year, especially, lately in this offense. So I definitely think Russell Gage does make a lot of sense. And I did want to add really quickly with some of the, because we have the COVID situations going on, like Tyreek, he may not play this week. And so if he doesn't, we'll have to see what happens there. The same situation we have to monitor with the Bucs situation with their wide receivers. We know Chris Godwin's on, out for the year as well. So, I think we could have some other guys that creep up into the end of this conversation in terms of the wide receiver threes this week. And then I did want to just hit on Gabriel Davis really quickly. I know it's not a great matchup against the Patriots, but I do think you see J.C. Jackson spend most of his time on Stephon Diggs, which is just going to open things up for Gabriel Davis. Cole Beasley is out this week 100%. Gabriel Davis has quietly just kind of went about his business this year, and especially over the last couple of weeks of the season, he has 3 touchdowns over his last 4 games, and I think that you can really depend on as a solid flex option this week for most people that probably just picked him up over this last week, and he's double-digit fantasy points each of the last 2. So I think there's going to be some interesting plays this week. But the biggest thing this week is going to be just monitoring the COVID situation because it's just wrecking the fantasy playoffs right now, each of the last 2 weeks. And this week is looking to be no different. So everyone just stay locked in here. We got our waiver show, our live show coming up on Wednesday. We'll also have our live stream on Sunday. But most importantly, we got Christmas coming up. Hope everybody has a wonderful Christmas. Hope everybody, whether you have kids, you get to experience that with them. Let's not let fantasy just ruin our week. This is a great week for, spending time with family, eating a lot of food, and just, watching the joy of others. It's not all about our fantasy teams, even though at times it can get in the way. But regardless of that, let's keep it locked in here. We'll see you guys on our live stream. Whether you watch us on Wednesday, we'll see you tonight. If not, we'll see you guys on Sunday. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for future content. Appreciate everybody checking it out. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.